Well, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I have another fantastic guest, and this is one I have to tell you I have waited a long time to finally reconnect with. Online with us right now is Army veteran and founder of JDOG Brands, JDOG.com, which is the largest vet franchise in the nation. Incredible, incredible business. We're going to talk about that obviously in a few minutes. But Jerry, just for fun, Jerry Flanagan's with us, and Jerry, just for fun, because this is a Lima Charlie show. Let's start with a little radio check. How do you read me over?
You sound guys great. The sound is awesome.
Okay, got your Lima Charlie. So Jerry, we met many many moons ago briefly, and I've been so excited to watch all the development of your business. And you have so many veterans in the mix. Obviously, it's a veteran specific franchise. So we're going to get into that, but let's just take a minute or two and go back in time. Share with our listeners your personal story of service. What led you to join the Army, the MOS? What were the decisions that led up to that part of your life?
Sure. I grew up in a lower income family, and there wasn't a whole lot of really goals or ambitions. I wasn't a great student. I didn't have a super work ethic, so there was no, I like to say, lemonade stand when I was 10 years old. None of that stuff. I wasn't one of those entrepreneurs. Um, but I did want to try to, better myself when I got out of high school, and my options were limited. And I always felt like I'd be, a good candidate for the military. I was in shape, and you always see the commercials, back in the 80s, so they were fun. So I joined the military. My job was a combat signaler, 31 kilo back then,
Oh
and I
yeah.
was a fire dog.
Yeah.
And this is just a few years before Desert Storm. My opportunity was they had a 2-year role where you come in for 2 years and then you go and get your Montgomery GI Bill and you try to go to college. And that was the direction I went. So I did the 2 years and I thought it did a lot for me from the standpoint that it was a ton of hours, brutal, laying cable, picking it up.
Yeah.
And it changed a lot. I changed a lot. I realized that there's a lot more in me than I had. I'm able to work harder and, be on time. And I was an honor grad in my AIT at Fort Gordon. And I thought I had a good little short mini, not too interesting military career, which most of us in the 80s did. And I got out and then yeah, I tried to go to college. Worked out about 5 months, and the Montgomery GI Bill just really covered the beer bill, the beer tab. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of money there, and I kind of never was never a big heavy student anyway. So I just realized that this little road I was trying to make happen didn't happen. So I found myself working 3 jobs, gas station, bouncer in the city, and washing dishes at a hospital. So did those 3 things to make ends meet, and I always thought that that's the kind of stuff guys like me did.
That's interesting. So yeah, that MOS is interesting. I dealt with a lot of combo folks in my career, and you're right. That is some hard. People don't realize what it takes to get that job done. Laying cable, putting up towers, everything you got to do, digging in the heat.
Annoying as a
Yeah, yeah.
better word for it.
Well, for you're the first one I've hit on with that MLS specifically. So I'm curious for our audience sake, where was the training for that, and what type of like what was the base or the state that you did some of that training?
Well, it was AIT, Fort Gordon. That's
Okay.
where that's where I was, and that's the big combat school, obviously. And then I served at the Fort Stewart, Georgia, with all the fun, big gigantic mosquitoes that are bigger than birds, and the nasty heat and the humidity, and we just ran around. Fort Stewart's almost all woods,
Yeah, yeah.
and I had the experience. The first set of Hummers came out in 1988,
Oh,
and
sure.
so I started with a Jeep, and it turned into a Hummer, and you'd rotate from driving to running the wire on the back, and like you said, you're throwing it up in the trees, and you're going across the rows, and you're going underneath, and then by let's say 1 o'clock in the morning, you dig your foxhole and you're all ready to get a couple hours sleep, and they're telling you to get up. It's time to move. So it was fun, I guess, to a point. Then after a while, I was like, wow, that was a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of work. And probably 2 years ago, I did a history segment. We were talking about the very first uh, folks in that field, laying camel, and even talking about like the Civil War days. You think about the um, uh, all the lines that were cut by the tracks. Then they got to go out there again and do it again.
Yep. You got to find it where it is. You ring the phone all the way along, go back and forth. Yeah, it is. And it was funny when I got out, I thought that, they told you in the military that that MOS would relate to an AT&T type job, and that wasn't true. So
Yeah.
the transitioning veteran, again, that didn't really, people didn't know what I did, and I kind of
Yeah.
explained.
Yeah. Ma,
Except,
Ma Bell didn't want you when Uncle Sam was done with you. Yeah. Well, on that point, I'd like to talk about that because that's a common theme that comes up with a lot of guests is that we all have some interesting technical skills and they're not always transferable. You would think they should be, but and maybe there's a disconnect with companies that do need that skill, but regardless, there seems to be a disconnect with the amount of people that leave the military every year with a certain MOS and they can't find something, at least not quickly, that matches that in the civilian sector. So I would think that among other lessons you learned after you got out of the service, I would think that that's part of what kind of led you to the path of realizing that you could take your business and approach other fellow veterans that maybe were lacking that direction themselves and wanted an opportunity where they could, be self-employed. I mean, do you want to kind of explain how you got to that point and
yeah,
kind of like the brainstorm session of how that all came about?
yeah, there's going to be a big gap in between this to this. There's a lot of
Oh,
things that
sure, sure.
I'll try to go reasonably quickly for the audience. So the the Desert Storm hit. I literally watched that whole thing while I was working late night at a gas station. And I watched Lester Holt on CNN back then, and I felt like, wow, I missed it because Fort Stewart, my entire base went over. And I had a little guilt because I felt like I was an E4 and I knew the job and maybe I should go in. And talked to the recruiter and he said they're not taking people in. It's gonna be a short one. You're not going back in. They're cutting back. Rumsfeld's cutting back. So kind of sat on the sideline there, and then I re-enlisted in the National Guard in 1991,
Oh, okay.
Fort Indian Town Gap, and I was
Oh, I've
11.
been there. I've been there. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't have much of a memory there, but I was there.
I had to
Um,
drive a Hemet up the hill. It was a horrible experience.
oh yeah, yeah, it's pretty popular now, but back then it was a horrendous. I mean, the National Guard back then, the weapons didn't work. I came from active duty, so it was just a weekend show up. Everyone had beards and hair, and I was like, God, this is
Right.
military to me. It was like stripes.
Yeah.
So I still did.
Bill Murray, John Candy sneaking around the
Yeah,
corner. Yeah.
exactly what it felt like. So I did it for 2 years, and I realized, this isn't going to be a career for me. So I put it all in a shoebox, and kind of that was it. I was done with the military. I didn't really use any of it after that. So fast forward, I wound up landing a job working for a seasonal guy that does, the Halloween stores, Christmas stores. And I did really well. He was looking for people that could work like crazy hours, nonstop, and hustle. And that really worked for me. It was low money, but it was a ton of hours. And I felt like, let me just keep working and working harder and harder. And, fast forward 7 years, I watched him go from a house to a mansion to one car, two cars, more cars, homes and down the shore in Florida. And I'm going from 25,000, 30,000, 35,000 a year. And I got to a point after 7 years, I knew so much about running a business for operations, marketing, leasing, merchandising, retail, people. I was like, wow, I feel like I should be the entrepreneur here.
Yeah.
Uh, the only thing I was lacking was financial accounting, really, but I figured I'd hire people for that, right? So I went out on my own. I remained friends, but I went out on my own. I went to Chicago, lived in a hotel, did all my hiring. Remember those food courts back in the day where you could go to a food court and you'd find everybody there and you could hire people there? So I hired the whole staff, at the food court. I thought I was successful. I thought I did well. And it turned out that when I finished up my short season of Halloween, all my money was tied up in cash, was tied up in fixtures, blood, makeup, wigs, capes,
Yeah.
registers, everything you needed to open up the following year. So I kind of blew it. I kind of ran out of money. So there was my first failure. I wasn't prepared financially, which is lessons for your listeners. It may look on paper, but you got to make sure you have a little pot of cash left over to carry you. So I went back and worked for him again. 5 years later, I realized, yeah, I need to get out of here and do something else. So my wife and I created a birthday party concept, like Chuck E. Cheese, except we had like moon bounces, swing sets. We sold the swing sets. Parents were in a lounge looking out out of the plexiglass, and they would have the TV on with football. And the dads loved it because they could bring beer, and we provided the pizza and all this stuff. It was Chuck E. Cheese, but was immaculate, clean. Parents could have party on their own, had their own little power party, and the kids ran around and jumped on top and killed themselves. I had little babysitters supervising them, and it really exploded. And we actually, this is 2006, and we had a franchise consultant come in and said, "You guys should franchise this." So we figured it out, worked it out, we franchised it. 2008 hits, and the economy crashes. I don't know if
Sure.
you remember what that was like.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but when a guy like me selling $3,000, $4,000 swing sets with $400 birthday parties, I dropped to the bottom of the needs totem pole, and our business got completely destroyed, which led me to 2010, where we had to file personal bankruptcy. And during that, going through that bankruptcy, I'm like, I gotta get a job. I need benefits. I need something. My kids are in middle school. Even though we were making a lot of money before, I just want to make ends meet to figure out what I was going to do next because I did not expect that to happen.
Right.
So as I'm researching on the internet, service businesses, home services popped up as something that is basically a recession, proof type thing. It makes it through those times. And junk removal really stood out along with the medical field. Well, I had no medical experience. I'm not a doctor, not a pharmacist, but this whole junk removal idea, I was like, wow, I'm a strong guy. I could do this. So I'm watching all the videos and learning, and I'm like, I'm gonna just do this while I'm trying to find a job. Because I need some cash to come in. So we started JDOG Junk Removal, and we started hauling in March of 2011 with the idea that I was going to out hustle everybody. It had nothing to do with the military. So we put up these index cards. We hand wrote them because we had no money for marketing materials. And basically, I would go to pizza places, the dry cleaners, doctor's office. Anytime I saw somebody, I went up and introduced myself and said, "Hi, if you have any junk need removed, let me know. Our kids probably go to the same middle school. Hire me." And then when my daughters had to get picked up from school, I would go in the line, the big long line where the parents pick you up.
Right.
And I would talk to every customer, every potential mom there that needs junk removed. Who you want to come to your house? My daughter's Cora. We probably know each other from, softball and all that stuff. And I thought that's how to build the business, was that relationship in the local market, in your neighborhood. They're only going to use you. Well, I was doing it for 2 weeks. And this guy, I'm clean cut hair. I'm there 15 minutes early. I said, "Yes, sir." And this guy's like, "So where'd you serve?" I'm like, "I served in the Army, the National Guard." And I'm like, "Well, why do you ask?" He's like, "Well, first of all, I could tell because you were here early, you were on time. You're calling me sir. You cleaned up, behind you. I mean, it was phenomenal. I give you a great tip. And if I'd known you were in the military, I would have called you sooner. And I'm sure if you let everybody know you were a military veteran, you're probably going to get more business." And I went back to Tracy and I went, "Trace, we don't really have a theme here. It's just JDOG, and it's a bulldog from Gonzaga to be found on the internet. Like, I need a theme. I need a model." And this guy's saying I should use my veteran status, which I really don't want to do because I don't want to say, "Oh, I'm a veteran, poor me, use me." And she's like, "No, that's a great idea." She's like, "If I was a customer and I knew there was a veteran that served right down the street to do the same service as somebody I've never met before," she's like, "I'm a mom. I probably would call the veteran." So everything changed.
Yeah.
So fast forward, we created the Bulldog. I started getting busier. The phone started blowing up. I have signs on my truck or my Jeep and my trailer saying veteran owned and operated. I'm available 7 days a week, last minute pickups. And that was happening. I was getting calls at 7, 8 at night. I put like the bat cape on, the bat cape, Batman, and jump in the truck and I'd go out and haul the junk. My philosophy was if that phone rings, I'm answering it. If I'm in the shower, I'm going to dry off my arm and answer the phone. And if someone tried to reach out to me and I didn't answer it right away, within 30 to 60 seconds, I had to answer it back. So my whole theme was, you can rely on me. I'm dependable. I will treat you with respect, integrity, and trust, which is our logo and theme now. We've been using it for 14 years. And customers, that really resonates with customers. They feel really good when you pull up in your military vehicle, which is all wrapped, big wrap trucks with the dogs, the Bulldog. People feel really good about, wow, there's a couple of things they're accomplishing as a customer. And it's an emotional sale, by the way. This is an emotional customer experience. They're using the military. They're giving back. They're not giving a handout for a donation. They're giving a hand up by giving us an opportunity to quote the job and do it right and use them again. So we get that opportunity as a competitive advantage by using this JDOG brand, this JDOG logo, the rat trucks that feel the military community, and hiring veterans at the local VA hospitals and whatever's a veteran. We also allow military families as well because we want spouses to be able to buy for their veterans, and also parents that want to buy for an Iraq, Afghanistan, son. So we kind of opened it up to veteran families as well. But we need a DD 214 in order to move forward with our franchise. So that's kind of where we landed with this whole idea of the military. I was brought back to the military after all those years, not realizing, the impact that we were going to be able to make in the veteran community and what it looked like compared to when I was in, compared to all these guys and women that served in all these wars. It's just an unbelievable situation.
Yeah, and to your wife's point, she was spot on. I mean, this has always been my experience and everyone I've talked to in my veteran community here. If you have the choice of doing business with someone for something you need anyways, and you know that, apples to apples, one's a veteran or at least family of a veteran, you're 100% going to go that route because you
Exactly.
just feel that you know you're in better hands because we all have that shared at one point in our time on this planet, the spinning rock that we're all on. We we chewed the same dirt. We did some of the same personal sacrifice. We put our own life on hold. We went and served our country. And whether it was a couple years or a couple decades, it's still the idea that we chose a path that most don't. So
Correct.
you want to kind of show respect to each other in that regard. So whether it's your barber or your mechanic or junk removal, whatever it is, that makes sense. And what I'm fascinated about, what I'm really fascinated about is that now you branded yourself in that way to where customers get it. But then on the next level, you have now attracted other veterans that want to be in business for themselves, but in that type of environment where you have this kind of shared camaraderie. And that's very unique. That's why, as I mentioned in your introduction, you really are. You're the largest veteran franchise in the country. And that by itself is an interesting feat to attract people that want to be self-employed in the same realm. And I'm sure that's really fun when you all get together and talk shop or have your calls. I'm sure there's an extra level of an interesting friendship there among the owners.
Yeah, and I got to give my wife credit for the franchising side of this because we franchised a year after we started.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And her idea was we've already franchised the swing set business, so we understood the documents and the legal part of it, what it would
Sure.
take. And her idea was like, look, the unemployment rate for veterans coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan was horrendous, so they needed something to do. And she's like, we got this cool business that, with all due respect, Jerry, you're, smart guy and everything, but this is not rocket science. This is junk removal. Like, get to put a system in front of these guys, and they're going to take it and hopefully run with it. And that's when we launched the franchise. In all these successes we've had with a lot of them, there's been a lot of them come in and just, they don't want to follow orders. They don't want to do it. They want to do it their way. So franchising is a very, very difficult proposition. It's very hard to get all these men and women across the country to follow your rules and regulations, exactly what you think takes to build a good business. And that's the biggest challenge as a franchisor. The climb's worth the view because, we still have 110 locations across the country. I think the closest is another junk company that's been doing it for longer than me, and they're at 4. So, I feel pretty good about, the direction and how we've done this. But trying to find better owners that are more fiscally responsible, that really want to do this long term, because this is a commitment and a franchise system is a commitment. And some people have come through and they've said, we'll take it and we'll do it our way. And their way ain't my way. And I've already spent the time. I spent, 3 years, blood and sweat and breaking my back and figuring out what resonates and what doesn't. And the
Yeah.
difference with us is we're mainly a guerrilla marketing company. We're primarily guerrilla marketing. We're lawn signs, door hangers, park your wrap truck in front of Starbucks while people are driving through in the morning, the 500 customers getting their coffee. And you got a big billboard sitting right there with JDOG on it, taking pictures of the truck. They go home, like, oh, I have junk removal. And then
Yeah.
before you book the job with your truck there.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff we teach. Anybody can spend 5, 10 grand a month on advertising and marketing with SEO. We do a little bit of that, but we think it's the combination of, I call it a ground assault, air assault. The sea assault is the B&Is, and all the funeral homes. You still go to funeral homes to make sure you have your office service there for people that are closing down their homes and estates. Our job is to knock on every door and say, hey, we're a veteran-owned company here, or we're a veteran family company. And by you hiring us, you're helping us hire veterans. That's a great American thing to do.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And to your point about, franchising is difficult, whether it's a You got some other names. You think about food service, you have McDonald's. You still have to have the consistency. You have to have the consistency of the product or the service. Nobody wants to walk into a McDonald's on a road trip and order a cheeseburger and wind up with something that doesn't come
Yeah,
anywhere close to a cheeseburger.
yeah,
So you're right that you have to have your SOP, and most entrepreneurs and what I like to call for fun veteranpreneurs, veteran business owners, it's yeah, if there's a tried and true SOP and the folks that are doing it that way are seeing better results, then obviously that's the better way to do it. So yeah, so walk us through, I guess. I don't want to overlook this detail because some of our listeners might be interested in this concept. So if you have someone out there now that's kind of curious about it, is there a main website or a video tutorial or something that they should check out first before going too far down the road of you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
how would you recommend someone who, let's just go through a scenario with me of like someone listening that might be a veteran or family member that's at that crossroads now. They don't know what to do next. They're out of work, they got out of the service or what have you, and they're kind of thinking about self-employment, but they're lacking some of the things. Maybe they have part of the mix. What would you suggest they do to just like get started with that conversation?
Well, for our case specifically, they would go to JDOG.com. And on that page, you're going to see all of the different things that we're associated with. We have a carpet cleaning franchise, we have a junk removal franchise, we have a foundation, we have apparel. There's all kinds of things that we do within our space, but you can also learn about a franchise. So when you click that on, there's a small little contact form, and then that form gets filled out and goes right to Dana Perry, who's our Army veteran. She served in combat, and she does a pre-screening to tell you, 10-minute conversation. This is what JDOG is all about. These are the parameters. Do you qualify as do you have a DD-214? Are you a veteran? Are you passionate about the veteran community? Are you going to want to be into this? This is these are the kind of people we want. And if that call goes well, then it goes to our director of sales, VP of sales, Terry Quirkery. And what Terry does is he's been in franchising for over 30 plus years. So he goes through the FDD rules and regulations and what it's going to take. And then we invite them, if things go well, to a discovery day. They fly into our HQ. And before we allow anyone to join the franchise system, Tracy and I have to, shake hands, make eye contact, tell them our story, which I'm doing with you right now, and make sure we tell them the pros and the cons, being involved in a franchise system. And they're able to meet all of our team that's here to support them as a franchise support. And it's 2 days. We take them out to dinner. And worst case scenario is they leave with a really good meal, and they hung around a bunch of veterans that can talk it up. We have a good time. A lot of people take that on, and they go to the next steps, which would be getting their franchise agreement together and moving forward, getting ready for training. We do pay for their hotel room and their transportation and a really nice dinner. So we try to absorb some of those expenses as well, but they're responsible to get out here on their own. And it works out well because you just can't buy one of these just thinking you know what it's all about. You got to meet the people that started it, that are running it, that are there every day. You got to ask the hard questions. We're going to ask the hard questions too because we do not want to bring somebody on that's just is not going to be committed, and it's just not. This is not necessarily a big money play for us. We really want to impact the veteran community, try to get a JDOG in every zip code in the country, which would be incredible to have them all over the place. And the best way to do this is, little slower start, than we did before. We were signing too many up at once. People were buying 5 and 10 at a time on paper, but they were never opening them. So we had to deal with a lot of paperwork and terminations and things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're in a good spot now. We think after 14 years of this, we're solid. We know we have to offer. We have great franchisees that are in the system now that have been here a long time, and we're going to be a little more inclusive with the getting with the AI and all that software that's going on. We got to pull more of that in. The old days of me knocking on every door and saying, "Can I be your friend? Can I haul your junk?" Even though it's really important, we do need some of the other software
Yeah.
that are the newest customer service methods as part of the brand.
Yeah, it is amazing how innovation just keeps taking off. It's hard to catch up with things. I have that with my own personal and work life. And I think back to, I mean, yeah, this AI thing. Who knows where that's going to go in the long term? But there's definitely tools there that make any business more efficient if you can figure out how it applies to your business.
Right.
So yeah, that's where you have a good. I'm sure you do the same thing. AAR, after action review. Okay, what worked? What didn't work? What are we going to improve? So yeah,
That's
that's
what we're doing
great.
right now. We're actually like ready to do a JDOG 2.0 because we've been doing it franchising, 13 years. I mean, we have a lot of experience and there's a lot of things we did that, I looking back, I'd be like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? But, I wouldn't change anything simply from the fact that you got to learn those experiences. If you
Yeah,
don't learn those experiences, it's not going to make you a better leader. So, I'm proud of my failures, proud of my mistakes. It's funny in the military, they say failure is not an option. But I think in a business world, failure is a necessity
yeah,
because
it's a requirement. Yeah,
if you're not failing, you're not trying, you're not pushing, through things that most people would not do, and that's what makes us different as entrepreneurs.
absolutely. No, 100%. It's my experience as well. I've been self-employed or a soldier since I was a teenager, and it's you take your beatings, but my gosh, do you come back stronger afterwards? I mean, you learn so much that you can't learn other than through. I used to say the phrase, "You learn from your burns." You know?
Well, 43 years old and bankrupt with two girls in middle school with no college degree, uh, was probably one of the bottom points of my life,
Yeah,
and we were able to lean on that pain and experience. And I would tell my wife, I'm not coming home unless I have so much dollars in my pocket from my work today.
yeah,
So if I see you at 6, great. If you don't see me till 10 o'clock tonight, I am going to put lawn signs out, door hangers. I'm going to go knock on every door I can, and I'm not coming back until I hit a certain number because
yeah.
we had no other revenue. Makes your work different.
Absolutely. And God bless you for having a strong partner and spouse and your number one ally there because it's tough. It's tough under any circumstances. But to take that type of setback financially, anyways, I think that was it to your point, kind of necessary for you to actually see the better SOP that was on the other side of that. So,
Yeah, I married an incredible woman. I mean, we're
yeah,
meant for each other. We work. Her office is right next to mine, so we work together every day. We do everything together. We're a very strong Christian family, and we've been able to just, look forward as much as you can. You look back really for a second. Don't spend a lot of time. My favorite quote is, "Don't look in the rearview mirror too long, or you're going to crash." I mean,
yeah, yeah,
that's
exactly.
really the reality because I could dwell all day and go, "Oh my God, how did I get through this?" And hey, we stuck together and, we changed our lifestyles extremely fast. Quick story on my two daughters, they grew up in this family entrepreneur business. And in middle school was when all this turmoil happened and we lost our Escalades and we couldn't travel as much and we changed. They both are college graduates. My one daughter has her master's and they both left college and ready to go to take on the real world and they wanted to work here. So my one daughter is a marketing director here at JDOG, and our other daughter is in the corporate service department. And so it's a real family business. And my brother, who has another business, owns 4 franchise locations and in the carpet side. And then my godson and my nephew work there, and they all have degrees. So they're all educated, unlike I was, but pretty proud, you know, person of here for to have so much success with all of our children.
Yeah.
Yet they're all rallying around this family business because we all care about it.
Yeah. Well, as you should be. You both should be very extremely proud of that. And the perseverance. I mean, one could argue that you learned some of that in the service as well. Not that you wouldn't have done it anyways, but I always try to reflect on my time in the service and what did I grab from there that I still use now. I'm just curious if you had a particular leader, maybe a colleague or a peer or subordinate, who knows, but was there someone or maybe something, some lesson there in the military that kind of connected with you even all these years later? Is there something that still kind of sticks out in your mind?
You know, Unfortunately for me, my military experience was so short and so long ago. Those relationships really didn't go that way. I wish I could come up with a story. I think my motivation really came, when I got out and I watched, somebody else be the entrepreneurs, that I wanted to gain success with, considering how I was raised. But I can't say because, at the time, the military was a little more casual. It wasn't as aggressive and it wasn't as put together, I think, as today, back in the 80s. And so, no, I don't have one. I get this question all the time. And I'm like, I wish I had a good story, but I don't.
No, that's okay. This is why I ask. It's everyone's got different answers, so nothing wrong with that. I certainly see that you're leading, and your wife and you together are leading. Obviously, your family and these other entrepreneurs. I'm really impressed. I'm really happy to reconnect with you after all these years. And obviously, I don't want to miss the point here. If there's listeners that just simply need your services, what's the quickest way? Is there a general number? Is it online? What would you recommend people to do that just need general services from, if there's a location in their area, what would they do to pursue that?
So it would be 844 get JDOG. It's a quick number, 844 get JDOG. Or they could just go to jdog.com and we have two buttons there where it's carpet cleaning or junk removal. Just click on that and then you can order book it right online.
Excellent. All right. And I'll make sure we have links on our site as well, just so that people that are listening to this in the future, archives or what have you, folks, if you're watching this on YouTube or anywhere, it's down below or it's in the page description there.
Yeah, if anybody's looking for work too, by the way. I mean, we're always looking to hire. We're always looking to mentor. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. We have a foundation. We're heavily involved in the veteran community. So not just, trying to buy a franchise. It'd be nice to sell franchises, but it's bigger than that. So if is looking to be part of a company to just maybe haul some junk and get involved, reach out to the local JDOG because they all have a handout to the community.
That's fantastic, Jerry. That's wonderful. Well, I really appreciate it. Now, my last and final question, sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not, but
Uh-oh.
I'm going to ask anyways. I like the theory of time travel. I don't know, maybe I've done it before, but if you had just 1 minute, and the only thing you could do is go back in time and talk to your younger self before you did your initial enlistment in the Army full time. Let's say the day before, you're going to go off, you're going to deal with those big mosquitoes, you're going to learn all this technical skills there. What would you say to young Jerry prior to serving his country? What would be that message in a minute or less?
I would say I should have joined the military for a longer period of time. There was two jobs offered to me for the 2 years. See, KP, yay, and Wire Dog. So I think I would have looked at the levels of different jobs more for a year, a 4 or 6 year career. Sometimes when you're that young, you think life's so short, and gosh, when you look back, I should have put some more time in there. But then again, you don't want to change anything because things wouldn't have wound up the way they wound it up. Because if I had stayed in longer, I may have made a career out of it. If I made a career out of it, I'd be the one looking for a JDOG franchise and not the guy who started the business and built the model.
Right.
So no regrets. But yeah, I'll share this with you. There's a book coming out that I'm going to be in. And once it comes out, I'd love to have her. I won't say her name or anything yet, but she's a veteran and she's phenomenal. And maybe you could have her on your show when she's ready to promote her book.
Sure.
But I'm working with her. She got a chapter on our story too. But so she's asking similar questions, and that's why she's put me on the spot. Like, what would you change? What would you go back and do? And I started talking to my wife. I'm like, see, I wouldn't want to change anything because then the outcome could be different. Even though I have two spinal surgeries, I have knee replacement,
Mm.
shoulder surgery. It goes on and on and on. I mean, that junk removal will really beat me up for three
Sure.
years,
Sure.
but it's worth it, right? So,
Yeah. Well said, my friend.
okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed the talk as much as I have. Please learn more by going to Jerry's main website, which is jdog.com. Can't forget that one. And look them up and see if you have any interest. And if you're a veteran out there, maybe you're looking for a challenge, maybe you're looking for work, maybe you're looking for a potential business. I would highly recommend you do some thoughts there and just check out what he and his incredible family of patriots have to offer. So, well, thank you very much, my friend. In your honor, I have a fun little song here that we're going to play in the queue. And folks, stick around after the break and we'll be back. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for your service, Jerry. God bless you.
Of course, thank you for yours. Thanks.